When COVID hit the US and everything shut down, I wasn't thinking of painting, let alone painting, mindful mantras. Like my mind wasn't at ease. Over time, I felt the need to get back to my meditational practice. And my meditation practice and my painting go hand in hand. I get to be myself while doing it, and there's something really powerful when I do that.
I didn't get involved in anything this year because I've been diagnosed with cancer.
Part of the diagnosis of cancer compounded with the pandemic just sort of made it difficult for me to want to sing. I would say, what do I have to sing about?
In Spanish, there's a word, you can't find it in English, it's called convivencia. And what it basically means is spending time with people and sharing moments and feelings and being together. And that's something that the pandemic didn't allow. And my projects are all about people. They're about my family.
The pandemic was a time where I could sit in my feelings in a way that I've never had before. Exploring more about what it means to be Black, what it means to be a Black woman. I had to write it down, I had to sketch it, I have to show the rest of the world what we go through.
College was the first time I picked up a camera, and I was working 2 jobs. I didn't have time to do the regular photo shoots that my colleagues would do. So I used my family as my models. And when I started to see all the pictures come together, there was a thread that connected everything. I like to take pictures because through pictures, I have found my own voice in this world, in our family. I know how to express myself in a different way. It tells a big story. The main focus of my photography is to be able to tell the stories of my community. And the people in my community are immigrants, people of color, not just people who have had the privilege to be born in this country, but also the people who had to immigrate from their countries in order to be able to find a better life for themselves and for their families. These stories are within people's homes, within their bedrooms, spending time with their families. It's after a long day of work. It's a very personal insider's point of view. I am trying to communicate to the world what our story is, what our parents' story is. First Generation specifically is about my family who immigrated from El Salvador and Guatemala about 30 years ago. She came here because she didn't see a safe and stable future for you in Guatemala, so she immigrated here. When we refer to successful immigrant stories, we talk about the immigrants who are working the most prestigious jobs in the United States and have the most prestigious education. An immigrant success story doesn't always have to be about that. My father grew up during the Civil War in El Salvador, and that's something that I didn't have to live through. And their success is being able to have a safe home, to have a stable economy for themselves, to be able to offer the little things that they didn't have as children.
I've lived in Somerville for 17 years now. I write nonfiction. I also do printmaking, mostly lithography. I become fascinated with certain topics, and through art and writing and making it personal or seeing how it pertains to me, I begin to see how, oh wow, this is a larger conversation about grief, about race, about feminism. It becomes more of, oh wow, this is affecting all of us, but here's my take on it. Grandma's kitchen as a hair salon. The kitchen was more than just a place where my grandmother prepared, served, and cooked food. It was also an at-home hair salon, As a little girl on Saturday nights, my grandmother would pull up a chair for me to stand on as she washed my hair. I would close my eyes tight and place my hands over them as she ran her fingernails over my scalp and to the ends of my hair. Even though I was afraid to I grew up in a family of transplanted Southerners, and they moved up here from South Carolina back in the 50s to Rhode Island, where, the racism wasn't as overt, but it was still there. My grandparents grew up during Jim Crow, at least in the company of their grandchildren. They never spoke about what happened, what they grew up with. I remember my grandmother talking to one of her friends and talking about how when she was a little girl, she remembered her father and her brothers sitting out on the porch with shotguns because they heard from their neighbors that the KKK was out. And, she was shuffled in the back of the house. So that started my fascination with just listening to people telling stories. And I realized that their stories are part of American history, which I don't really think they ever thought they were. And that's when I began to see the bigger picture of what it means to write about family, particularly my family.
My journey as a musician or as a singer, it's in my blood because my mother was a trained singer.
And think about the things I've lost, the things I gave away.
I decided, I really need to sort of continue her legacy. Her life was cut short at the age of 35, and I wanted to honor her memory.
Throw it away, throw it away, live your life, give your love each and every day.
I've sort of had a peripatetic existence. I was born in Chicago, and I lived in an all-black community in Chicago. And then after my mother died, my father then moved me and him to Berkeley. It was an entirely different experience because I met so many people from different ethnic backgrounds. It was a struggle initially. Who am I? How do I fit in all this? Being as light-skinned as I am, I always have a different take on things. Then I went my first year of high school to New Orleans and stayed with my grandmother. She taught me how to cook. She taught me to appreciate New Orleans Creole cuisine, taught me to be proud of my background and my mother and all of my people. So I think that she really meant a lot to me. And I found out that my grandmother's grandmother was enslaved, and my grandmother's mother was the child of that enslavement, according to my grandmother. Knowing more about my own background and what it meant to be Creole, that sort of changed my sense of who I was.
I'm not a very loud person in everyday life, but I feel like my walls kind of become loud for me in terms of feeling seen, in terms of expressing myself, in terms of sharing my culture. I go by Imagine in the art world. I'm an artist from Nepal, and in my paintings and my murals, I paint in my native letters. Most of my life I've been in Nepal, but then I've also been here for a while, and so the meshing of my life coming together is what my art is. I didn't grow up around graffiti, having been born and raised in Nepal, so I was introduced to it later in my life, and I was just blown away by it. And you stylize your letters to express yourself and your personality. What? It just blew my mind. So a lot of times when I paint, the whips and the tails you see in my paintings, that's all from when I was doing my hand style. And at the end, you have this attitude sort of that you express yourself with. Nepal is the size of Arkansas. So when people meet me, the question is oh, do a lot of Nepali people look like you? talk like you. These questions always bothered me. I don't have a straightforward answer to a country that has more than 200 languages. And so I was always trying to find the right answer that didn't make me feel like I was misrepresenting my country or my people or my community or my family. And I paint in Nepali. It gives me something authentic to say that, yes, this is Nepali. These are what Nepali letters look like. It feels very me because it's the best way that I found I know how to represent my culture in the most real way.
I'm learning more and more how important visual representation is.
Hey there.
As I got older, I began to realize that there were things and ideas that I had that couldn't be accomplished with just writing.
That's good. Yep. There you go.
Lithography clicked because unlike drawing or any other medium, there was a process kind of similar to writing where, you know, sometimes writing, you need a writing prompt to get you going on your idea. And with lithography, you have to prepare the aluminum plate before you put down your image. You have to really think about, is this the image I want? How do I put it down? You know, my niece is about to graduate from high school, and she told me, I really like your work because it looks like the people I see every day. And that really struck me. I think about who I was at her age. I didn't really see much of myself. There's a print that I have called 2 Definitions of a Black Woman. On the body, I wrote all of the stereotypical things that Black women are called or thought about. And then on the outside, I wrote words where Black women think of themselves, like how we have to hype ourselves up because the world isn't going to do it for us.
When the pandemic first began, it was a time of reflection for me, and it helped me in a lot of ways. Although in the middle of that, I also had to help my family cope. I was concerned for my family because they're considered essential workers. There was no extra protection for them regarding their health. Some of them don't have health insurance. If they would have been infected by COVID, what was the solution then? I did research in finding out what places were giving out money to people as well, or food, helping my father filling out unemployment. I would provide my photography services in exchange for a donation.
A little bit towards me. Shift here. There you go. Perfect. Mm-hmm.
All those funds that were received were given directly to my family or to other collaborators of the first generation projects that were left jobless. I think that one thing that we have all learned is that we're in this fight together. We are not separated, and that we have to be there to support each other. Feeling that reassurance of being connected, it was a way to feel safe regarding all the racism and protests and violence that happens around us.
In this past year, writing and art has made me remain in touch with my feelings, not disassociate. Between Breonna Taylor, George Floyd, the thing I kept on coming back to was, I wish my grandparents were still alive because I don't know how to cope with this. What would they say to me? How would they react?
But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free. I still have a dream.
I think that there are similarities. So the civil rights era and the Black Lives Movement, For me, the sickening part, or the most distressing, is that it hasn't changed. I was 10th or 11th grade. The civil rights movement was just up and coming, and they were protesting in different parts of the South. I saw those old black and white photos of the officers on horses just running over those people, and I couldn't believe it. I remember saying, "What are they doing to my dad? What are they doing?" And then there was just continuous tumult between Martin Luther King getting assassinated, Malcolm X being assassinated. All that sort of happened during that time. And I remember my girlfriend, she says to me, "Raynel, they're killing them all. They're killing them all."
It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream.
It was really frightening to be part of a generation that was really trying to help change things, and then just see it sort of like destroyed in front of you because it was all televised.
Freedom, freedom, freedom. Black lives matter. Black lives matter. Don't shoot. Don't shoot.
You would have expected these people that have been fighting for civil rights, that those deaths would have meant more over a 40-year period.
The protests after George Floyd, the Asian massacre, all those things felt very unsettlingly familiar because growing up in Nepal, we lived through a 10-year civil war. So to see something like that here felt so scary, but also unreal that I was just processing it.
The immigrant story is about survival, and it's about feeling safe. All the protests and the riots that happened, it was kind of like an awful reassurance that racism is as alive as it has always been. I grew up in Somerville. I grew up hearing the different things that my family would encounter at work because of their skin color, because of their lack of English. A lot of the people that I grew up with are not living in Somerville anymore because of the rent increases, even my own family.
I created a print to raise funds to stop Asian hate. The print was basically the letters A to Z, but in Nepali. The alphabet are the foundations of how you express yourself, how you write. It's a similar thing that we have in the English language too, and I kind of wanted to draw a bridge between those two. The prints were sold out within 24 hours, which is awesome. As more and more South Asians and Asians came up to me and said that they feel like part of them is up there on a tall building for everyone to see in a way that's honorable. To me, that's a powerful feeling, so I hope to continue doing that.
I think I'm in the winter of my life, age-wise. Music has sort of made me blossom. It's almost like the spring of my life, I suppose you could say. You know, I'm coming into my own as this person that enjoys singing, but is actually singing.
This song was written by a woman named Consuelo Velázquez in 1941. It's called Bésame Mucho. And she was a devout Catholic. And she wrote this after she kissed a boy. And she was afraid she was going to go to hell.
When I do my concerts, my first theme was women in song. I was looking for songs either composed by women or lyrics written by women. A lot of these women, in their own way, fought for civil rights, fought for justice. Before, I might have chosen songs that were blossomy, happy. Now I'm looking for songs that express life struggles and overcoming those struggles. Our strength is our roots, our family, Whatever gift I have, thanks to my mom, I can share with the time I have left in a special way.
But my hope is that, with purchasing the piece, with, following me as an artist, that it opens up a conversation. Why did the artist do this? What it means to have art in their house that speaks to race or about feminism, but also to see this woman who grew up in Rhode Island, who grew up with transplanted Southerners, had these crazy, amazing people as part of her circle. They were here and they existed and they are captured someplace in time in these stories. And someone else on the other side of the world gets to read about what I experienced in sitting in my grandmother's kitchen.
The system is built to let you know that you don't belong here, right? So what happens when a kid from Nepal continues to do what she does, regardless of what's happening? I see that as a form of resistance in itself.
Now, being a Latina artist from Somerville, I want to be able to represent the families that I grew up knowing, who had their beginning roots in our city, and how they have grown and how they have been successful in their own way. This is our story.